So it's been 1 year since I've recorded one of these videos where I'm going to show you guys what it is that I use to service watches, fix watches, and also what I've got in my setup. A year's a long time, and a lot of things have changed on this channel. Channel's grown, which is super fresh of course, and I've also acquired new stuff. Now new stuff is good, don't get me wrong, as long as you are basically going to use it. I think you guys will find it beneficial because when you're getting into this hobby yourself, you can also see exactly what it is that I'm using, where I get it from, and if it's something that you can use on your watch servicing journey. Now obviously when it comes to working on watches, space is going to be a problem for most people, including myself. I don't have an obscene amount of space, believe it or not, but I like to make use of the space that I've got. On my bench, the way that you see it in front of me, the main focus that I have here is my green mat. This is where I work. This is where all the magic happens. This is where the magic is going to happen for you too, and you need to keep this area clean. The only things that you really need to be within this green kind of vicinity are your oilers, your screwdrivers, and your loops. That's all you're going to need basically to work within this tight environment. Anything that you need to bring into it, that's fine, but from a decluttering aspect, keep this nice and clear. The main reason for this is if you, let's say, have a screw that bounces or something like this, you're going to have a lot of an easier way of finding it by basically having a much cleaner area. The other thing as well regarding cleanliness, which is also important, is at least 2 times a week, I completely de-clean this room, full wipe down, full vacuuming, you name it, it is done. Because cleanliness is absolutely paramount when it comes to dealing with the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Now, probably the most best tool that I bought in the last year, which is quite a bit expensive, the whole setup cost me close to 800, 900 euros. Now, as you can see, you can basically move this in most directions how you want to have it set up. And the other thing that I did was, also mainly for the YouTube video, was I purchased a really good autofocus camera for the top. The other thing that I connected to this as well, I picked up, literally cost me 15 bucks. I picked up an old Sony Bravia monitor, and the reason I did this was purely for myself. Not all the time I want to have to look through the lenses. If I have a big screen in front of me and it's also in like full HD, I can see things very clearly, as you can clearly see with the screwdriver on the screen. It really makes things a lot easier to work with. Rather than hunched over, looking through these eyepieces, I can just sit back, relax. If I'm inspecting, I can glance on my monitor here. And as you can see, the quality is actually really good. So I'm going to move through this bench from left to right. And what we have here is, we have obviously a nice organized toolbox with HB on it, super fresh. This was actually made by one of the HB members of the channel. Now Mark 3D printed this for me. He put my logo on the side and on the front, which I think is a really nice touch. And of course, I'm forever thankful in regards to that because it's not something I asked for. It came out of the blue and it was really nice to receive such a cool gift. Now on here, I've got all my tweezers organized. I predominantly use brass tweezers, as you guys already probably know this. I also have some plastic tip tweezers, which are going to be used for when I'm dealing with taking off hands or dials, because you don't want to use metal on a dial, obviously. I also have strap removing tools, a hammer. I also have my file from my jackal tool, pliers. This is also a really cool tool, but also very expensive for what it is. This is the Bergeon 4733 Cannon Pinion Tightener. It looks like a set of pliers, but actually what it does is you can actually grip the cannon pinion in the middle and you can micro adjust the distance of how much you want this to be open. Now you can use a staking set obviously to tighten up cannon pinions, but to be honest, I find this just so much faster to use rather than setting up a staking set. It just makes life a lot easier and quicker. And I'm really one of those kind of people where if I can do things a lot quicker, then I'm definitely a lot more happy. Time is money at the end of the day, and that for me is a game changer. Now in the bottom tray, I've got a few various different things. This is also something that was sent to me as well. Now people are going to look at this and go, oh yeah, it's a case back opener. It is, but this is specifically for the Enica Sherpa graph range. So things like the Aquagraph, the Jet Graph, somebody basically had this custom made, and it fits perfectly for those case backs, which is obviously completely invaluable because those things can be really tight. Now also in here I've got also various different Presto tools. In my opinion, these are the three that you need. You have a basic standard one, which is a hand remover, which has the centerpiece in the middle for removing hands. You have what they call a cannon pinion remover, which is this one. It basically is exactly the same minus the central part. I also do use this for center sweeper hands on chronographs because I find this one is a lot more forgiving than using the other one. And last but not least, which is actually really expensive for what it is, this is actually for removing wheels that are on top of movements. And this is the only way that you can get this off. It has special teeth which grip hold the underside of the wheel, and then you can simply just pull it up just like you're removing a set of hands. Absolutely invaluable tool and something that I use regularly. I've also got some Plexi Revive. This is also just as good in my opinion as Polywatch, but you get a hell of a lot more in it for your money. I've got a few different movement holders here. This one was actually ridiculously expensive what it is, but it is for the Valjoux 72, custom made. And again, it's something that for me is just invaluable because I work on a lot of Valjoux 72s, and to have an actual movement holder for this, definitely something very, very useful. I've got a few of these as well, these Bergeon 4040 movement holders. They're not very expensive, and again, something that I use on a daily basis, something that you will also use on a daily basis because it holds your movement to a movement holder and you need control when you're working on it. I also have a mainspring closer. Basically, it's a two-piece part. You can buy these from Bergeon, they're around 40 bucks, or you can buy one on eBay for like 5 bucks. This is the 5 buck version and it works perfectly. So again, if it comes to certain tools, I have also said before that if it is just something that is basically a little piece of plastic like this, I'm not the kind of person that's going to spend 50 or 60 bucks because it has a Bergeon or a Horotec label on it when it's just exactly the same. This is also a hand setting tool. You will definitely be needing one of these. Hand removing levers as well. Hey, one tip that I would say about removing hands, when you get a set of these, regardless of the ones you get, sharpen your ends yourself. They never seem to be sharp enough, and you want them to be as sharp as possible so that you minimize any kind of contact. Now moving on, we have got the staking set. Now you might turn around and ask me and go, HB man, why have you got two staking sets? Well, quite simply was, the one on the right is the one that I had for a very long time. And then I saw this new old stock staking set for a ridiculously affordable price. And quite simply, I just couldn't say no. It was just too good to say no to. The other reason is some of the stakes on this one are quite damaged now because it's very, very old. So this was also the reason when I saw the opportunity why I had to get this one. A staking set is also one of the #1 tools that you will need on your watch servicing journey. Now, I'm not going to go into the mad specifics about why, because there's many other videos on that out there. And to be honest, I might even do a video about it myself. But it's simply because the amount of different things that you can do with it and be creative with it while you're actually servicing watches, from removing balance staffs, etc., etc. Now, these are all the fluids that I use for basically servicing watches. And I'm going to go through these real quick and tell you exactly why. So as we basically go from left to right, here we have got some Moebius 9504. Now this is a thick grease and I use this for a lot of the metal on metal parts. For example, I would use this for connecting the setting lever to the setting lever spring, also where the yoke goes, things like that, where you need a metal on metal, nicer grease because it's a little bit thicker than some of the other ones. Also here I have got some fixer drop. Now I talked about this many times as well before. Fixer drop is absolutely invaluable. It's ridiculously expensive, so I also make sure that I never have a lot of it because it really is that expensive. You will use this on your capstones. Some people also use it to treat the escape wheel, and it's basically so that the oil that you apply to it doesn't disperse everywhere. Moving on, speaking of that, we have got some 9415-2. This is also a special oil that is purely used for oiling the exit stone on the pallet forks, which also runs in conjunction with the fixer drop. Next, we have got some B-dip, or what's also called 1-dip. You can use this for cleaning your hairspring. You can clean this for different capstone, different parts. Now moving on, a very, very common oil that I also use here is Moebius 1300. 1300 is a medium oil. Now this is what I will use for adding onto posts like the minute wheel, the hour wheel, intermediate wheels, etc., etc. The next oil that I've got is the 9010. 9010 is the finest of the oils that I use. I will use this for oiling jewels, oiling pivots. And it's something that you will definitely need to get hold of too. This is Bergeon Presto. It is actually acid, and I use this on, unfortunately, more than a few occasions where you have a broken screw that has broken off into the movement and you need to get it eaten away. Now, the way this works is because it will not react with the brass movement and it will only eat the steel. It's a very, very simple and easy way, although it takes a little bit of time, to remove that steel from the brass without damaging the brass. Here we have some D5. D5 is very similar to 1300, and if I'm honest, I actually don't really use this. I prefer the 1300. So this is something that I've had for quite some time, and it's not really something that I use that much at all. We also have some Molycrot DX paste. I also use this if I want to just add a little bit of grease onto, say, a crown tube, something like that. Now, moving on last, we have Lubetta. There's two of these. There's the V105 and there's the V106. The 106, as I clearly write on it to remind myself, is for the rotor bearings on your automatic rotor, and the 105 is basically for the reversing wheels. What you do with this is you will dip your reversing wheels in, hold it in for 10 seconds, blow everything off, and then you will let everything dry for 15 minutes before you back install it in the watch. It adds a very equal lubrication coat over all of the bearings so that it helps the automatic works run a lot smoother on the watch once it's fully serviced. So as we're talking about oils, let's actually talk about oilers and an oiling station. Now, as you can see, I have got a vintage Bergeon one. You don't need to have one of these. I literally bought this because I saw it at a watch mart and I just thought, oh man, that looks so cool. The way that you will take out the oiler and then it opens for you. There are much simpler, cheaper alternatives out there, and like I said, the only reason I purchased this was because I really liked it. Now, when it comes to the oilers, there are many different types of oilers that you can get. You can get automatic oilers, which I personally don't like, or you can get premium oilers, or you can get basic cheap oilers. I would go for the ones that I'm using, which are the premium ones. Now, they are a bit more expensive, but they have a really finer tip on them, and I do find that the oil displacement is a lot more easier to drop off than using one of the cheap oilers. The only problem is I do also find that they're just as delicate as a cheap oiler, and I've also broken a few of these tips in the past as well, and of course then you need to replace them. And like I said, these are not cheap, so maybe from a starting out perspective, a standard oiler set which you can get for like 20 bucks is probably going to be more than enough from a starting out perspective. I also have a staking block here as well. I use this a lot for dismantling automatic works. You guys will have seen this on my videos. Quite simply because it keeps things stable, and if there's a point on the other side which cannot lie flat, I can use one of these guide holes, drop it in, and then everything is flush, so it makes things being unscrewed a lot easier. Screwdrivers. The number one important thing when it comes to servicing watches, and I said this before on one of my earlier videos, when it comes to screwdrivers, don't go cheap. Spend good money on screwdrivers, because the more money that you spend on them, the more they will look after you. Now, there's many different options out there, from Bergeon to Horotec, etc., and of course generic cheap ones. But I'm very, very serious about this. Spend some decent money. I think this set cost me about 150 bucks, and it's the ones that I've been using for a very, very long time. You can also replace the blades. In the middle here as well, you have spare blades that I can replace, but to be honest, a lot of the time, I just file these down to get a sharper point, because that's also something that you should do. You should sharpen your blades. It's very important, and you can do that with an India stone, which is also something that I have as well. Lubes, very simple. Eyepieces, whatever you want to call it. I have two. Two is more than enough as far as I'm concerned, because I have a microscope. The most common one that I use is my 3X. I use this one for most things, and then I have a 15X if I want to really get up close and look at something. Rodeco, probably one of the most enjoyable things that I've ever played with in all my life. Believe it or not, I really like this stuff. I find it therapeutical. You can roll it in your fingers, you can stretch it out, but also you can use it for 1,000,001 different things when it comes to watchmaking. Whether it's picking up screws, whether it's trying to get something out of a movement that you just cannot get with a pair of tweezers, so you just pull it out with your Rodeco. Cleaning, it picks up dirt, fluff, anything, because it is very sticky and absorbed. This is something that is not very expensive. It is also something that you can use without having to be sparingly with it, because it's quite cheap. So when I've made it dirty, I will just tear it off, I will use a new piece, etc. And it is something that you 100% need to have when you're servicing watches. Also, in regards to this, I have got a gel cushion. This is something that you can also get in leather. I went for the gel one. No idea why I did. It was just at the time. And this is basically where you will just sit your watch on when you want to inspect it, or if you're taking it out of the movement before you're transferring that movement to a movement holder. Very important to have. Also not particularly expensive, but definitely something that you're going to use on your servicing journey. Two other inexpensive items which are also 100% needed regarding servicing watches. You have got a blower, and also you've got a case opening ball. Now, some people get hung up about the balls, like, oh man, you're opening a case with a ball. Well, you know what? If I can get into that case with this rather than using a wrench and potentially slipping and scratching it, I will 100% use the ball every single time. One thing that I will touch on though, which you'll see later on in the video, is I do have different methods obviously of opening up cases, because if that case is on really, really tight, well, you're not going to be able to open it with a ball. But this is definitely something that will minimize 100% any risk whatsoever of scratching your case. The other item is a blower. This is a Bergeon one. Again, not particularly expensive. Something that I use on the daily. It is simple air blower. You just press it in and it will blow out a small amount of air. It's great for just cleaning off dust, fluff. Also, it's really good for cleaning dials as well. If you have some fluff on your dial, simple blow, and it'll deal with the situation. Parts trays. Now these ones, they sell at Bergeon and they're quite expensive for what it is, because let's be honest guys, this is just a piece of plastic with a plastic lid and that's it. I don't buy the Bergeon ones. I buy the cheap AliExpress ones because I can get like 5 of these for about $6 or something. And for me, they're exactly the same. It's just a simple parts tray for keeping your parts of your movement that you're working on, like this really nice Grand Seiko, by the way. That'll come in another video. And of course, you get a nice dome lid for it as well. Look out for these on AliExpress. Like I said, they cost next to nothing and they are really, really important to have, because you want to keep what you're working on clean if you're not going to finish it, like this Grand Seiko. It's not finished. I don't want to finish it right now because I'm talking to you guys. Now this is my beast of a cleaning machine, and it is going to obviously be a little bit elaborate for most people, but I'll be honest, I absolutely love this. Now this is what they refer to as the super automatic, quite simply because you put it in, you press a button, and the whole thing will basically deal with itself. And I really like that. You have got the 3 traditional jars at the bottom, and you've got the heater as well, which will basically dry the movement after it's all been cleaned. So for the cleaning machine, I use 3 different solutions for this. For the first tub, it will use a Elmer waterless solution. This is absolutely brilliant. In the second jar, I use distilled water, which is something that I change after every watch that I put in there. It's distilled water, it's very affordable, and it's something that you need to rinse off your waterless cleaning solution that you've put through in the first one. Now for the third one, I use Elmer's Supro Pro, and this one is where the magic happens as far as I'm concerned. It basically just rinses everything off, it gives it a great clean, and it's definitely something that I recommend. The fourth one that you see there is the dryer. The dryer will heat up and it will dry all of the movement parts while it's spinning. And then of course, after a couple of minutes, it spits it out and everything's dry and you're good to go. Now, another thing when it comes to servicing watches, which is something that you're gonna use as your time goes on, you're gonna need somewhere to store all your stuff, all your little things, all your replenishments like your Rodico, your basic tools, things you're working on, also watch parts, etc. And this is something that I have here. Now, I picked this up for a really good price, and these will pop up on second-hand websites. And all it is at the end of the day is just different drawers. I have all my crystals in here, for example, various different sizes. You guys have seen this before anyway. Here's another example of this one. Now, these two I literally picked up. You can actually see the sticker still on it. €12.50 each. Absolutely brilliant. When I saw these in a second-hand store, I thought I've just got to buy these because they're definitely going to be something I'm going to use. It keeps all your things nice and tidy, like I got my finger cuts in here. Keep your eyes open for things like this because these opportunities do come around. So moving to the back side of my bench, this is another storage place where I have various different tools. Now some of these you might have seen before. Let's go from left to right. Now on the left side, I've got that Link microscope that I got sent by those guys at Link Micro that I did the review on. Thanks very much guys, super appreciate it because I do use it from time to time. It is a basic digital microscope with a 7-inch monitor as you can see. And it's very handy in regards to using it for observing parts. Is it good for stripping down a movement? Absolutely not. It was terrible. It sucked in every way and I would never recommend it for that kind of thing. But for observational points of view, it works really, really well. Another tool as well, which is something that I 100% advise in regards to watch servicing, is the timographer. You're going to need one of these because you're going to need to know exactly how your watch is running over a longer period of time. And this is something that I also use on a daily basis. Now moving to the back side, this is my heavy duty industrial case back remover. Now a lot of people don't see this because I don't show it on the channel that often, quite simply because I have to remove the camera and remove it all around. And some people do get hung up and think, hey HB, you want to use a ball? Like I have super strength or something. No, for stubborn cases and also when I've finished a watch, after I've used the ball, I will use this heavy duty case back opener. It is absolutely brilliant. As you can see, it has like a steering wheel kind of design to the top. This is a vintage one. Again, I'm all for vintage. If it works, why do I need to buy something brand new? And this will last me a lifetime. I'm not exactly sure of the age of it, probably in the 1970s. I've got all the different head attachments for it for different types of case backs, even got Rolex ones as well. Ugh. And of course, I've got different lug widths as well for holding the case. This is something that you're probably not going to use. It is something that I like to use. It is a Geiger meter. I am testing this in case a watch that I'm suspecting is a radium dial. I've spoken about this many times before. I don't like working on radium dials. They make me itchy. And it's certainly not something that I like to do. Some people aren't bothered about it. It's a personal preference. I have enough health things as it is. I don't need something else, thank you very much. So I basically just stay away from that kind of thing. This is a crystal press tool. It is really good and definitely something that I advise getting if you can get hold of one. Again, keep an eye out for secondhand ones because you can get them at affordable prices if you know where to look. Places like eBay. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of watch parts and a lot of tools will come up as very expensive prices, but not everybody who's listing things on eBay knows exactly what they've got. So sometimes you can find stuff like this where you think, hey, hang on a minute, that's really affordable, I'm going to snap that up. And this was exactly what I did with this one. I also got all of the dies as well that you can see for it. These were all included with it. So the tops and the bottoms, all in the original box. And it even gives you, which I thought was really cute, there's the original instructions in there as well, which is really awesome that literally is still in there from all this time. Moving on, I've got my Horotec hand press 3-ply tool. You can get these in individual ones as well, but I wanted the 3-one, especially working on chronographs a lot, so I can use the very fine one up to the medium and then obviously the fat one. It means that I don't have to change the dies all the time. I can literally just use them already set. I think this is really good. My only drawback, what I found with this, and I'm a little bit disappointed, is that 2 of the gaskets have already snapped. So I'm going to have to get new gaskets for these to replace them. This is also something that I picked up on AliExpress. I was looking into getting a bezel removing tool. Again, very expensive if you want to buy one of these from places like Horotec or Bergeon. Now what I read about them was that if you spend a little bit of time on these, you can actually make them really good. So when mine arrived, it was very noisy when I used to turn the wheel. So what I did is I stripped absolutely everything down. I greased everything. Now it is absolutely flawless. And I also sharpened and sanded down the blades to make them extra fine for cutting in and separating that bezel from the case. So when it comes to polishing pivots, this is what I'm using. 2 different things here. I'm using a traditional Jacko tool, and then I'm using this weird thing that I purchased and did an actual YouTube video on this. What I will say in regards to this is really good for quickly just removing dirt off of pivots that are a little bit harder to reach or they're not coming off in the cleaning machine. But as I've already touched on, it's not going to burnish your pivots or things like that. So it's not going to make them hard. You will still need to use a Jacko tool, invaluable tool, and especially for polishing and most importantly, burnishing pivots. Time consuming, but invaluable. Now you guys have seen this before, also something affordable and something that you're going to need with servicing watches. This is my trusty Elmer ultrasonic cleaner. Very simple. It's got a self heater inside as well. And it's basically something that you're going to need for cleaning cases, watch straps, getting all that grime and that dirt off, etc. Definitely something you can get. Now I got this again on a marketplace secondhand, and believe it or not, I think I paid 15, it was less than 20 euros I paid for it anyway, less than 20 euros, and it works absolutely flawlessly. The funny thing about this was I'd actually owned this for I think 3 or 4 months before I actually realized that it had a self-heating mechanism inside. I actually didn't know. Now inside here there's not really much exciting to show you guys, I'm afraid. This is basically just a box full of watch straps. I've also got some different carrying cases for watches, things that I've accumulated over time. There's a Dremel in there that I do use on occasion, but really that is really it. Now, believe it or not, in the same room, I actually also record the HB videos as well, as you can see. This is the setup that I use on one of the other walls. I got some really nice books here that you've probably noticed, so I've done a little bit of a closer shot for you guys to actually see these. And of course, the display that I have as well. I really like the background setup that I have for working on the Horology Biology videos. I think it looks really nice. And it's a very simple setup, but it obviously looks really nice as a profile backdrop. So there you have it, guys. That is all the stuff that I'm working with and all the stuff that you might need when you're moving forward on your watch servicing journey. If you have any questions about something that I've missed or something that you want a little bit more detail on, maybe something that you saw in the video, feel free to hit me up in the comments and I'll try and answer you as best that I can. As always, guys, keep it fresh and I'll see you next time.